automatically set up every time without having to go back and do it every single time. I'm sure there's a way to do it. You know, I am, I can figure out some things pretty easily, but some things I tell you, I'm dumber than two sacks of rocks at figuring out. All right, gotta turn that down. All right, so here's the. I gotta edit this stuff. Give me a minute. So there's the link. I'm turning this on because I got to make something. I'll let YouTube figure all that stuff out. Damn it, I just saved that, I thought. I guess I didn't. I have to get some thumbnails later. I'm not worrying about that right now. So if you download this link, you'll have a, I guess, let me show you what you'll get. You'll get a zip file. Actually, let me click on the link. That'd probably be better. So when you get to here, you'll see a particle list text file, and you'll see a pipe. It's called pipe.zip. What you'll do is, and I got my chat window closed right now. I'll probably open it in a bit, but I just want to get through this first without getting distracted. So you'll open the zip file, and you'll see in there, when you open it up, a folder. Now this isn't packed like a mod. So what you'll do is copy this folder to your clipboard, and then you'll go to the user folder, and in vehicles, if you don't have a vehicles folder, then create one. Paste that pipe in there. So if you were to open it up, this is what you would see. So you can't really work on a mod when it's zipped up in a zip. So this is where you put it to work on it. Now you'll notice in here there's a JBeam, an info file, and a LUA folder. Now the LUA script, Tony Cardney wrote for me. I asked him a while back. He had asked me a favor for something, and so I asked him about, maybe writing me something I needed. And so he come up with this. It basically, when a beam breaks, it creates a particle instead of being on all the time. So like in certain situations, like maybe you want to run into a pipe and the pipe breaks and then the particle comes out. So that's what this is used for. Let me load the node editor and load the JBeam into it and show you what that looks like in here. It's very basic. It is just actually that's not it. Huh, that's strange. I thought I edited that. Yeah, I don't have a reference node set. I tried to make this video offline. I started it over about 3 times and finally just said, you know what, I'll just do it live. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, this is what the mod is. It's just 2 nodes. It's just A0 and B4. Now if we look at that LUA script, you'll see that it's basically saying here the nodes are A0 and B4. And it wants a beam -1. So once it gets a beam, it basically add particle by nodes relative. Now, someone had asked about the different numbers. Now, for whatever reason, the way this one works, these 2 numbers are 0, 0. And this number, I believe, has to do with the velocity, but I don't think that even applies in this type of case. It's not like something with inherited velocity. I actually don't honestly know what that is supposed to do. I've tried to adjust that and change it, and it doesn't seem to do anything. The next number here is the particle number. Now that list that's in that link that I gave you, it's got all the particles listed all the way through, all the numbers. Once you download it, you open it up, you'll see that particle 54 is water mud. Now the next number is the area in square meters. Think of an area effect, like a magic spell, like where it's like 5 meters square of a radius. Well, 0.1 would be the smallest. 5 would be 5 square meters, right? Now this is the number of times the particles duplicated. So like 1 would be like your default. 3 would be 3 times. It would make it 3 different times. It makes it more, you can see it better basically, but the more you put, the more of a performance hit it'll cost you. I tried to make 500 of them earlier just to see how it would perform, and it pretty much halved my frame rate. So let's load that mod into here, and we will look at how these numbers affect. Now sometimes when you are editing the game while you got this stuff open and you try to update the game while it's running, it doesn't like it sometimes, and it'll just lock up on you. Especially when it seems to be when you're messing with the LUA stuff, it tends to lock up more. So you'll see in your pipe, there's no picture preview. Now you're not going to see nothing. Just hit Control B and Control N, and you'll see the nodes. I can show them a little better by going into the node debugger thing here in vehicle config and say to make that wider, and the node visualization, make that wider. Then we can kind of get a better idea of what we're looking at. I'll hit Control B twice. Well, that'd be a total of 3 times now, and it'll show you the types of beams and whether or not they're broken. This is a normal beam, nothing special about it. And if it breaks, it turns red. Now the amount of strength that beam has is in the J-beam for the mod. That's new J-beam is what I named it. And if you go into here, you'll see basically it's the same thing that is in the node editor. Just, you can see it a little better because the letters are bigger in here. If we go down to the beam section, you'll see here that the beam strength for that beam, which those aren't there, the beam strength that connects B4 to A0 is only 300, so it'll break relatively easy. And once it breaks, it'll give you that particle. Red indicates a broken beam. Normally you don't see any of that stuff. All you normally would see would be, well, in this particular case, would be this. You would see nothing. Now see what I mean about it locking up? That has something to do with the damn, I don't know what the hell it's got to do with. I don't even want to speculate because I don't know. I'd be talking out my ass if I said I knew, because I don't. I'd just be guessing. But yeah, that happens, so you just have to reload it. Now this is not the same as particles that I did with the dummy. The dummy, for example, is a little different. So we'll spawn him in, and he's got different particles that, like say he's being dragged on the ground. Now the grid map, just so you know, the grid, small grid, is asphalt. It's just a default asphalt. Connect him to that node. Then drive away. So this particular particle is kind of, well, it's a little over exaggerated. But it's like, like a blood splatter, like on the ground. Now, if he gets hit by the vehicle, that's a different particle entirely. It's kind of like well, one's like a splash, one's like a splatter. Right? They're two different particles, depending on how he's interacting with the environment. And that's defined a little differently. See, his node material was changed, but before I go into what his node material is, let me show you the node material for that simple one that we just looked at a minute ago. So that node material is metal, right? And metal interacts with a lot of different things. Now, where all that stuff's defined is a little more explaining. It takes a little more. I'm going to plan on making that in another video, but I can kind of briefly go over it. His node material is different. Let me load him up and see, what did I name it? Fire small. Now, the reason I use node material fire small is because that node material is not being used for anything in the game, as far as I know. Because you got different node materials that make up things, and the particular node materials list let me find it. So here's the node materials that exist in the game. Now, these aren't to be confused with ground models. These are the material types that are assigned to nodes. Like, everything's made of nodes, and each node can be a different material type. And the way these things interact basically is defined in the game's install folder. So, like, go to the game's install folder and you'll see a LUA folder, and if you open it and go to common, you'll see particles.json, which isn't actually a LUA, but it's in there with the LUA particles. With the LUA files. And if you open it up and you scroll down, it'll tell you here how, like, when rubber meets asphalt, if the slip velocity is greater than 18, then at a width of 0.1 with just the velocity multiplier of 1, then one time create particle number 6. When rubber meets asphalt, it also makes particle number 22. And if you looked at the particle list, I tell you what those are. Don't go by this on here. This is something, I don't know what that's actually. I don't think that's anything that's being used, because these don't match up anymore. They're all a little, well, yeah, they've been changed. They're not this anymore. So use this list. So, like, number 22 is smoke white, and number 6 is also a smoke white, but it's a different smoke white. Now, the way I had to make the dummy have different particles was by making a new variation. So now, this is what's in the install folder. This is the default. This is not the one that I changed. So to make the dummy have something different, instead of editing the one that's in the install folder, I don't want to mess with any of that stuff. What I did is, in the user folder, made a folder called LUA, and in there put a common folder, and then pasted the particles from the install folder to here. So what's in the user folder is most of the time prioritized before the stuff in the install folder. So, like, if you got any changes you've made to a level, then the stuff that's in here will be what you've done to it. But the core of the stuff is in the install folder. So by doing this, you can introduce new particles by like saying fire small meets asphalt if the slip velocity is greater than 1. Then create particle number 101. And if it meets metal, then it creates particle number 102. Now you may say, well, particle 101 and 102 ain't in the game, or 103 or 104 or 105. No, they're not. They're not in the game. So you have to get those out of the install folder also. So if you go to where the game is installed and you go to content, now this used to be in the game engine.zip. I believe it was update 3.0 or update 3.1 that they moved it. So now it is in the content folder. So in art shapes, you'll see art, shapes, and the only one you're interested in is the particles folder. So you'll copy this to the clipboard, and then just how it is here, art shapes, you put it in the user folder in the art folder so that you have an art shapes particles folder. By pasting the entire content into there, we'll load stuff first before it loads the default stuff. So if you wanted to make a new black plastic piece of plastic, you know, a piece of a car that breaks off, and you want it to look kind of like a grill, or you want to make a you know, something for a tutorial, and you want the particle to actually be the word a particle. You know, this is where you'd put all the images. And here's like that little blood splash that I kind of did in the photo editor, and this is a little one for the other one, that when he hits the car. So inside of there you got manage particle data, and you got the emitter that emits that particle. By editing these, you can make new particles, and you can just easily copy one of these that's already made and paste it. Like for example, I left off at like particle 104, 105. If I wanted to make a new particle in the game, I could copy this one, for example, and a bracket and a comma always separates these. So if you put a bracket and a comma and you paste one that's above it, you can make that a new particle by just changing the number to 106. Erase this persistence ID. The game will, I don't know, so I think I've had issues with that, so I just remove it each time. Now all the other little nitty gritty things, all the other little small minute things, you can change all this stuff in the world editor and actually see what it's doing as you're doing it. I wouldn't say to try to do it in here, but to make a new 106, you got to have a new particle to go with it. Unless you're going to use one of the existing ones, you just need unless you just want a new emitter that emits in a different way. If you want an actual new particle to go with it, you'll need to come up with a name, but use the capital letters B and G. Make sure you put that before anything else, and then put an underscore and then name it. I named this F4 because I couldn't think of nothing to come up with. I was just experimenting, and I didn't want to think about a name, so I just put F4. So once you would save that, then you would go back to that folder and you'd go to the manage particle data. And just like we copied from the other one, you can just take one of these that's already in here, copy it all to your clipboard, put a bracket and a comma, and paste it. Now just remember what it's named here, which I didn't give the new one a different name. Let's just call this, oh man, let's just call this I can't think. Let's just call it Z. Little lowercase z. So the one we copied, we name it, and we name it here. We remove this persistence ID. Now we got an animated texture that they don't actually do anything yet. I don't know that they'll ever implement it, but for the time being it's just a duplication of the texture name. So the texture is the image. So if you wanted to make a new particle and you just load your photo editor, make sure, well, there's two different kinds. You can have the kinds with black backgrounds and the kind with transparent backgrounds. Depends on what you're wanting to make. Depends on if you want your particle to have the bloom effect or just to be an alpha clip. So like we'll just do like 512 by 512, and we'll erase the background. Oh, gotta add an alpha channel to do that. And then we'll just take a paintbrush and just make something real quick. I don't know. How about these leaves here? Alright, I'll save that, export as, and in that user folder in the art shapes particles folder, we'll name our PNG, we'll just name it z.png. I don't want no compression on it. Alright, so the z and z. Now I do got the game running. It'd probably be best to close it and reload it when you do this. So save, and we already saved that one. So let's load the game, and we should have a particle 106. Now I can just knowing how these live streams go, these damn things always never go right. So I'm not 100% guaranteeing it's going to be in here, but it should be. Here, 106, particle 106. Now I didn't adjust all the stuff, it was just mimicking whatever the other one was doing, and this particular one will not use blend style additive, it'll just be not set. And then the colors are still set from whatever that other particle was, so we're going to change those back to what they, to just white. Or, let me see here. So you got the emitter and the particle. The emitter emits the particle. Not sure why sometimes these damn things are like the wrong color. Now, that's clearly not what the image looked like. So, this is using lighting. That's why. Now there's a lot of different stuff in here. I mean, there's a lot of different things that take forever to explain it all. And I've messed with this stuff enough that I've got a pretty good idea of what does what. But the emitter is one thing and the particle is the other thing. You know, like the gravity and all that stuff's in the particle itself, and then the drag coefficient basically is like an invisible force that's grabbing it and slowing it down. So like if the emitter is emitting with a lot of velocity, for example, and there's no drag coefficient, then it's just going to take off, you know. But if it's got more drag, it's going to still do what it's doing, but it's going to be like something holding it. Inherited velocity is like, well, it's like if something collides with something and that inertia gets carried over to the effect. So like, you know, something runs into something and it shoots a, you know, whatever, like explosion or whatever you make, it moves with the animation. It doesn't just happen. It goes with it, basically. And about 0.5 is a good one. Once you start getting over that, then it starts to look artificial, like it's over accelerating. Putting this back down. Now there's a lot of stuff, like I said. Let me get up in here in the sky. Because wherever you're looking when you open the particle editor is where the particle will show. Now this is not the actual emitter, this is just the preview to show you what your particle will do. Now, fill reference velocity. Alright, the one way you can think of this, you know them lawn sprinklers that shoot an arc? You know, like they lay flat, but they like spread this like wave, like a fan, like a Chinese fan, right? So think of a Chinese fan. Let's first look at the theta min and max. Alright, so if you imagine a Chinese fan and you close it and you're holding it up so that the top of it's pointing in the sky, alright, that would be 0 and the max would be 0. But if you were to make the theta max 180, as you increase this, it opens up the fan all the way up into 180, right? So 180 would be a half circle. Now the field reference velocity, well, imagine if you're holding that lawn sprinkler, you're standing up in your yard and you're holding it against your chest so that it's running vertically instead of horizontally. And then you decide to start spinning around in a circle. Well, that's what the field reference velocity does. It's like you spinning around up to 360 degrees in a circle. Then the variance would be, well, would be like if some of them holes were clogged up and not all of them were firing. Like, you know, you had dirt in some of them holes. So if there's variance in it, then not all of them will be shooting out. They'll be kind of random. There'll be some here and there. Which, this isn't a great particle to use as an example simply because it's like 4 or 5 leaves all drawn at the same time. To get a better idea, probably need something just like a single image. It'd probably be better to use than that. Let's just find something that's a single thing. Oh, I'll just make something, damn it. I can make it before I could find something. Alright, let's just make this, let's just make a solid ball. Let's make it, I don't know, let's make it blue. Or, let's make it, we'll make it green. We'll get rid of the background, and we'll just paint one ball. Alright, you know what, maybe I'll shade it a bit so it looks a little more, so it doesn't look so flat. Alright, we'll export that. I'll just overwrite. Or no, I'll just make a new one. I'll call this Z2. Z2. Alright. Alright, so this might give you a little better idea of what's going on. Although, let me also make all the balls the same size. Let me make sure their timing is pretty spread out. Alright, so now we can, also make the gravity 0, and it makes it even easier to understand. So there we go. There's our Chinese fan. Theta max at 180. As we lower this, you'll see the fan closing. Now, opposite to that, you can have 180 and 180. So as you increase it that way, it'll close, but face down. Like that. Now, unless you're using theta min and theta max, the fill velocity won't do anything. It works in conjunction with this. So, for example, if you got a little bit of this, and then you add a little velocity of the fill velocity. I don't know what the hell that's. I don't know how to say that. Fifth reference velocity. You can see how it works with the other. It just really depends on what you're trying to make. What kind of effect are you wanting? Lifetime is how long it lives. You can think of this as this is in milliseconds. So if it's 500, then it's shorter. 100 milliseconds is even shorter life. Lifespan variance milliseconds is, well, if this is 655 and the total is 655, then it's going to have the greatest amount of variety of different lifetimes. Some may live just a second. I mean, I have split millisecond, and some may live up to 655 milliseconds. If you got 5,000 milliseconds and you got 1,000 variants, then some will live up to, well, like, I guess 20% of them will vary. Now, longer lifespans mean particles stay on the screen longer, and the more particles, the longer they live, the more resources they take. And you got constant acceleration. Does it accelerate on its own regardless of what it's doing? But if you had constant acceleration and inherited velocity, then that particle would not only have its own acceleration, but it would also be multiplied by anything that affects it, that runs into it, or interacts with it. Now, the ball isn't really a good one to use for spinning something, because it's just a ball, it's just a single image. You're just seeing a lot of them. But like the spin is something different. Wouldn't really be a good example to use in this. The offset. The ejection offset is basically that. It's an offset from the center of origin. So like you can see where the particle's origin is, and you can see what the offset has done to it. It's made it offset away from. The more away from it is, the greater the number. And of course the variance would be how much of an offset between the point and the outer point that there would be. Let's make a lot more of them. Well, actually we can't. Because BNGP underscore 106 is only creating one particle or 3 particles. How many did I tell it? I don't remember. I have to look. When I find Notepad++, it's in here somewhere. I think I have it open. Nope. I'll just reload it. I tell you now, I know why people want more than one monitor, because there's so much stuff to have to move around. And I don't even have the chat window open. That would be another window that would take up room. I'll eventually get another monitor. It'd be easier to do these kinds of things. Alright, let's see here. I damn got myself confused. Alright, particle 106 is creating, oh, this ain't it. Hey, wait a minute, I'm damn confusing my damn self now. Yeah, I done got myself confused. No, this is just going to shoot out the one particle. I'm confusing it with like when a particle is created. So let's get out of this and let's go back to the dummy. So for the dummy to have the unique particles, it's got that was added to the LUA script. Like there. Let's say we'll change this to 106. We'll change that to that new particle that we got right now. Let's make this look like something a little different than that. And let's save it. Now the thing with this is weird. You have to save the emitter to the current level. If you save it to its file, it does something crazy. I don't even know how to explain what it does. It's better to just save it to its level and then copy that stuff over to the user folder. Just do it that way. It's a lot easier. Now what that did though is in the user folder in small grid, which even if that didn't exist, it does now, it made an art shapes particles folder, and it don't have all the images. In fact, all it's got is that one change or two changes, however many changes you made to that particle. So we'd copy that. Let's close the game. We'll copy this and we will overwrite the one in the user folder with that one. I mean, we're just adding to the I couldn't tell, is that maybe it does update it in both places. There's been times when I've made changes to particles and I load the level and it's not reflecting the changes, and I end up tracking it down to here. But I don't know why it always does it, and sometimes it doesn't. Now I'll delete the, oh, let me make sure this too is updated. delete the one out of the small grid just to make sure it's not loading anything out of there. And now when I load the dummy, it'll make that new particle. I know it's a lot of stuff. It is. It's even harder to try to explain it. There's so many things you can talk about related to particles. That's not right. It's not making that particle. Now I gotta think. I'm not quite sure where. I got to change that. Close all this stuff. I probably got it. I probably didn't save something. Yeah, I didn't save it when I told it to be 106 earlier. I might have to reload. I don't think you can update the... That particular one, when you change in here, for whatever reason, you have to reload. It doesn't let you, like, change and then update the game while it's running. See, we got our new little green balls now. So what I can do is I can, I don't think y'all need green balls. I'll revert him back like he was before, and then I'll zip him and share him, and I'll show you how you gotta zip him to share him with new particles. It's a little tricky, so bear with me here. Make sure that that's the right one. I think it is. Yeah. Alright, so packing him as a mod with the new particles, that's the tricky part. I'm not 100% sure it actually works for everybody. So, normally when you pack a mod yourself manually, like the way I do it, is I'll take the dummy, that's in here. I'll just make a new folder on the desktop, and I'll copy him in there to it. Now, inside of here, you need to move the stuff that's in the user folder related to the particles into here, if that makes sense. So like earlier in the video when I created the LUA folder with the common folder and particles.json, that needs to also be in here. so that when that mod loads, it knows to, say, make its node material interact with that particular material. If it's not in there, it's just going to revert to what the game's defaults are. And the next thing is, well, those particles got specific pictures, and they got their own emitter values separate from the game. So then you take the art folder that's got the shapes, particles, where you did all your editing, and where you put like the green ball, for example. That needs to also go in the mod folder, but in as the art folder, like that. Actually needs to be moved out of there. But you don't necessarily need the dynamic decals. That's unrelated to this, but it seems to put that in there now. After the new update, they introduced that. I haven't even messed with that stuff yet, so I don't know much about it. But it's not related to what we're doing. So this is how this would look. And like I said, you want to remove it out of your, I ain't saying completely delete it, but I'm just going to delete it just to make sure it's not in the game. And that when we load our packed mod, it's actually loading from that and not anything else. So in there it's deleted, and we'll remove the LUA folder that contains that. So may not need to remove all of them, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And in the temp folder, I'm going to delete. Now to pack him with this stuff, that's where it gets a little trickier. Need to make a folder called vehicles with a lowercase v. If any mods you downloaded from me don't work, check and make sure they don't have a capital V. I've saved a lot of them with capital V's, and that doesn't, they won't spawn, they won't even show up. So move the dummy into there, then pack all this at the same time, and this will be the zip file, the mod, the zip. So like, you can name it whatever you want to name it. Now I didn't change the info file. It's still using what I had it set to. I didn't even talk about the info file. This particular mod, well, it did have Havoc NG's face on it at one time, so that's why I made a mask. So that's why I named it that. We'll just leave it for the time being. Now in the zip folder, you put that mod, which is in the user folder, which is not where I'm at. Mods, and then put him in there, the zipped form of him. Now you can see I don't have anything in here, well, except for this thing I downloaded earlier. And then in the vehicles folder, make sure he's not in there also. So I'll just delete him out of here completely. So if the dummy spawns, it should spawn with those particles as if it would if you shared the mod with someone that don't have those particles. It should work. If it don't work, then and this video stream ends, then when you know it just well, I ain't even gonna say anything else. You know what happened. And I'll probably spend all night trying to figure out why it happened. It didn't happen. Hopefully it'll work. Just ignore that. I don't even know what that's causing that. Oh, yeah, I do. I was playing with the camera. I messed it up. So this is what I'll share, and you'll have everything that I showed you, and the files and everything related to him and the blood splatter and all that stuff. So that zip that you just saw me put in the mod folder is going straight to OneDrive, and that's what I'm going to share in the stream description. Man, look at all these windows. I gotta find him. I'm gonna put him in a new folder. No, node breaks. Beam breaks. Beam breaks. Creates particle. LUA Written by Tony Courtney. Dummy with custom blood. There's a link for it. LUA originally was from the Canon Fire, but this is the one that I managed to figure out how to change it, and that should be it. Just remember, this particular one here is not packed as a mod. You would just copy that folder that's in the zip to the clipboard. You know what? Maybe I should pack it as a mod. That's just going to confuse people, having two different ways to try to explain how to make it work. Yeah, let me do that. Probably be best. You remember, there's no preview picture for this one. It's just, it doesn't have a picture. this also is the link. It's got the also the particle list. I think that's pretty much it. I think I went over pretty much everything that I can think of. Didn't really have any problems with this video as far as anything related or anything like that. So, and it appears there's no comments, so that's good. I didn't ignore anybody. But now it's hard to chat and it's hard to do these at the same time, so that's why it's just easier for like more memory intensive things, not to try to chat. As much as I like to try to help everybody, it doesn't help when someone asks a complicated question on top of something that's already complicated to explain. I just really get confused, more so than I normally am. But I think that's pretty much it. If there's any questions, let me know. It looks like I did save everything. Just make sure. And there's probably a lot of questions that I probably didn't answer related to particles. Just feel free to comment, and I will see if I can explain them. As far as explaining more in detail about adding, yeah, there's a whole other particles that I didn't even go over, and that's related to adding particles to a car. Like, not when something breaks it creates a particle, or not when something interacts with something it creates a particle. Just the nodes just having a particle all in themselves. That was something I shared yesterday. I believe I shared what I was explaining in the video. Let me see. I may not have. I don't know. Can't remember. Yeah, adding particles to a car. Question from comments. Yeah, I did share it. See, this is a little different. This is actually different. This is using a different LUA file. This was the one that was, someone asked about nodes relative. And unlike the other one, this one does not use a 0, 0. This actually points to the particle number that you want to be the particle. So, like this engine here that's leaking mud, it's specified in here to be particle E1L. And now this is a little different in the way that it's not. Maybe I did talk about this. Yeah, I did. Maybe. I don't know. I done forgot. But yeah, this one you got to specify the particle, and it's a little different. It's a little different. Why is that link going there? Oh, I think I put this in the wrong folder. I think I did. Oh well. Yeah, so this is a little different. This up here, you gotta put local. I probably ought to explain this in another video. But basically, each particle that's going to be used, like these particular particles were particles that, I mean, damn it, these nodes were nodes that are on the engine. E1L and E4L are engine nodes. So, like, to make another one, you'd have to duplicate that and paste it, and then you'd put the name of it, whatever the particle's going to be, and then you basically duplicate this line, and you would paste it. That's not what I, damn it. Alright, so let's just say the particle number, the particle name is Z. So, particle Z. Then you would take this one and duplicate it and put Z here and put it here. And then duplicate this. If you wanted to make a third particle, for example, and you would put Z. Now the only difference between this one and the one that, as far as this part's concerned, the one where the particle breaks and creates a particle, these is 0, 0. It's not pointing to a particular node. It's just 0, 0. It's using a different, I guess, a different context. And then, of course, this is the velocity. This is the particle number. This is the area in square meters, and that is the number of times it creates that particle. But yeah, I can explain that in a different video. I can go over that more in detail. Maybe I did in this video. I don't damn remember. It's been a long video, so let me know if you got any questions. Like I say, there's a lot of stuff related to particles. I'm fascinated by them, but they can also really be confusing. But anyway, that's it for this. Y'all have a good evening.